Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Tonight I want to talk about working with circumstance and what that means. Working with circumstance is a phrase very often used by my Dzogchen teacher, Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. And I've talked about it before, but I want to talk about it a little bit differently tonight. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be somewhere else. I felt trapped by where I was, who I was with, what was happening. I felt very painfully the limitation of the circumstances that I was in, my own limitations, and the limitations of circumstance around me. It was extremely painful to me, and I wanted to escape. Not into numb out, but into a bigger world, into a bigger view. The earliest things that I remember to do with this were, I remember one time I was driving with my mom in the car. I don't know how old I was. But I just started crying and I said, I hate these people, meaning the people in my neighborhood. And my mom said, why? She was shocked. And I said, because they're so mean to each other. And then I used to wish that aliens would land on Earth. I mean, I seriously wanted them to land on Earth. And the reason why was to shock everybody out of their complacency and their small-mindedness. I would sit on the radiator that looked out the window in my bedroom, and there was a park out there. And I would just look up at the sky and I would mentally try to call to aliens to come and shock us. I thought that was the only thing that was going to make us have a bigger view, if aliens landed. And then I used to lie around thinking about, I was just so eager to see somewhere else and see some other way of being. I would have these arguments with myself. Well, if aliens landed and they offered to take me out of this planet somewhere else, but I could never come back, what would I do? And usually the answer was I would leave. There was, some fear there. But and then sometimes I had this feeling like looking around. This was actually quite common. I would look around at everything and I'd think, why are there glasses here? Why this form? Why not something else? And I would get very, very frustrated, How come we have to have these houses and these cars and this stuff? And I would try to talk to my mom about it. She would just... she just couldn't. And sometimes she would say, why can't you just be like other people and have a job and do what you're supposed to do and da-da-da-da-da. Why do you have to be so frustrated with everything? And then as I got older and I started practicing, all of this kind of developed into this feeling like that I just didn't want to be anywhere. I didn't want to have to be in one place. It wasn't that I wanted to be nowhere. I wanted to be everywhere. I just didn't want to have to be in one place. And I would have, night after night after night, dreams of wandering around in unknown landscapes. It was quite lovely. But sometimes I'd have dreams where I was in one place and I just sort of landed there, and then I couldn't figure out why I was in this particular place. And it was upsetting in the dream. It would be very upsetting. And I'd feel very, very depressed in the dream. And then to top it all off was this constant feeling that I was supposed to be leading some other kind of life. Whatever I was doing, or that somehow there was some other life that I couldn't quite, it was like right there, but I couldn't quite see it, that I was supposed to be leading. And I've had that feeling, up until like yesterday. When I did a divination and I asked, what is the ideal form of my life in this lifetime? I was just going through again, this feeling of, no, I'm supposed to be doing something else. And I'm having my feeling is basically I'm having some sort of failure of imagination or failure of vision, like that if my mind and heart were more open, I could see a different way of putting all of this together somehow. It's kind of like, but I can't quite see it, so I just kind of go along doing whatever. I sometimes express this to my former teacher. And often it comes down to, I just feel I should be wandering around and not really living in one place and not organizing my life in such a static way. And, he said, oh, that's just a past life memory. This is your life now. Forget about all that. And I actually have had visions during sadhana of past lives where I was a wanderer, of different kinds of wanderers. So I think that might be true, that there's some threads woven in here of people who really did live their lives wandering, and part of me is like, I want to go back to that. But he said, you can't go back. This is your life right now. But I was sort of like, ugh, really? I didn't really accept that. So last night, the feeling has been waxing again, of like, what is it I could be doing differently? I can't quite envision it. It must be something different that would feel more natural. Especially, I think this came on, actually, the sort of return of those feelings, because we're about to sign some enormously long lease on a commercial space, and I'm just like, Really? Are we doing that? Why? And so I said, so what is really the ideal form of my life? What really should I be doing? Just tell me and I'll do it. I was like, oh, shit, I actually mean that. And it said, basically, you're supposed to be working with other people, building something and accumulating and having, working in this world to basically do all the things I think I'm not supposed to be doing. But it was actually a good transmission doing that divination, because I realized it, but I felt in that moment that, okay, I really just have to buckle down and be in the circumstance that I'm in and do that. I have to just relax about being here, doing this, signing a 5-year lease, having Jayakula, an organization? Really? I have to have an organization? Right? As Bhairavi says, I have my red button. I'm always like threatening to just wander off somewhere. My panic button, It's the red phone. Ma, get me out of here. I just, I think for probably the first time in my life after doing that divination, I thought, okay, I'm going to be here doing this stuff. It kind of connected with one of Ma's main teachings, which is whatever circumstance you're in, that is the circumstance that is the right circumstance for you. that is the circumstance that God has put you in to help you. And if it's, something you think is difficult, you're in a difficult circumstance, or you think you should be in some other circumstance, which many people do. And believe me, I'm not the only one. Mm-hmm. We're trained in this culture to think we're not in the right circumstance. We have to make our circumstance different. In fact, we just spend our whole lives future planning to have a different circumstance. Right? That's what we do. That's considered to be normal. But actually, the reality of our lives is that every circumstance is God, and that's the circumstance we've been put in by God. And it is the right circumstance for us. I finally grokked that last night after 59 years. I was like, okay, I'm in this circumstance, and this is my circumstance, and I've been put here by God to be in this circumstance. And, maybe I feel I want to be wandering around, but that isn't actually the circumstance God has put me in. Right? Working with circumstance, first of all, it doesn't mean working with circumstance so you can be in a different circumstance. Okay, I'll work with this for now, but only if you promise me it'll be different later. Working with circumstance means you're working with this circumstance, and that's all you're doing. I've known these teachings for years, but it just kind of sunk in on a deeper level. That the circumstance that you're working with is the circumstance that God put you in to work with. Every time I've done a divination, maybe 20 times, saying, Ma, can I get rid of Jayakula? The answer is always a resounding no. And I'm like, oh. And it wasn't until last night that I was like, okay, she has told me, this is your circumstance. This is the ideal form of your life. The circumstance that you're in is the ideal form of your life. Why? Why is the circumstance you're in the ideal form of your life? That's right. That's my new mantra. I mean, this is one of my main teachings. But somehow I didn't think it applied to me. No, I was supposed to be a wanderer. So, for people that haven't been dreaming of wandering your whole lives, you are trained to be living in the future. That your ideal circumstance is always in the future. My ideal circumstance wasn't in the future, it just wasn't there. Right? I didn't think in the future I'll be wandering around. I just felt kind of oh. We are literally trained by our culture. It has nothing to do with our spiritual practice to always be on a path of improving ourselves. We have some self or some life that we're working toward in the future. And we're only working with the present so that we can create this future. And therefore, we're not working with circumstance. It doesn't mean that we never have a plan. But I'm talking about that plan to improve and fix yourselves and have some idealized life that you think will resolve the problem of your existence. Right? That's what I'm talking about. So I have, this idea that I think is going to resolve the problem of my existence, which is I'm going to drop everything and wander off. That was basically what I wanted to do. So here we are in our circumstance that has been given to us by God. Working with that doesn't mean being passive or just putting up with whatever happens, or it doesn't mean that. It's not like the difference between doing something and doing nothing. That's not what I'm talking about. We're working with circumstance. We're trying to wake up, and we're working with our present circumstance to do that. It so happens that for whatever reason, and I don't really know what it is, the powers that be think that what's going to help me wake up is doing all this stuff to have an organization and have lots of people around. That was the other part of it. I had to have a lot of people around. And for whatever reason, that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been assigned, right? And so whatever it is that you're doing is what you've been assigned. And the way that you work with it is, the orientation toward working with that is that you're doing the very best possible job you can do to work skillfully with what is actually happening, and not thinking or planning, or as I was, doing, mourning this other life that I don't have. And you make all decisions based on what's going to help you to wake up. So if you do that, then your life does change over time, right? But you're not creating an ideal life or an ideal self to work toward. You're working with immediate circumstance, with discrimination and as much clarity and courage as you can muster, and making decisions based on what will help you most to wake up. If you're going to be a tantrika, right, that's what you're doing. So things are moving and changing and transforming, but not according to some ideal that you have, right? Simply according to those moment-by-moment moves that you make, or moves that are made toward you as you're kind of making your way in that circumstance that's happening right now, and making decisions based on what is going to further your path. Now, some of those decisions are just happening in a very intuitive heart way. It's not like you're sitting there with your planner, writing them down. But other decisions require other choices of what direction to go in, because life is always presenting us with different open doors, right? So we have to choose which doors to walk through, with whom. And some of those decisions are easy, and some of them are very difficult because they require a lot of courage and letting go of old versions of ourselves and security and all that stuff. So yeah, we're not standing still, but we are not projecting a self or an ideal life. We are just working with our circumstance with the understanding that that's where God has placed us for our own benefit, and then whatever happens, happens. I did divinations about the new space for Jayakula. Should we get something where, we can remain very nimble, something we can change in a moment, which is always my preference. Yeah, I want to be able to decide to do something totally different in the next minute. But that's not really conducive to signing a lease or having an organization, right? So the divination said, do something permanent, more permanent. And the divination was extremely positive about this place, this space in the State Street Church. Couldn't be more positive. And there was many things about it that made me uncomfortable. Not the space itself, but just the 5-year thing and a couple other things. And I was just like, okay, just go on with the divination. Not even going to pay attention to all that stuff. Bhairavi started to say, well, I think we should check this, and I think we should check that. And I said, Bhairavi, could you please just go along with me on this? I need to just do this, it's my own karmic intervention on me. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.